What's going on, you guys? My name's Ty Knotts, and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns, 5 Valentine's Day Disappearances. Number 5. In February of 1988, David Sims took a business trip to the Philippines. However, while he was on this trip, he managed to get married and return home with his wife, China Rose, who was 20 years his former. China moved in with her husband back in England, and the two eventually purchased a home together. Though within just a few years, their marriage took a turn for the worse, and China informed David that she wanted to leave him. This because he'd become abusive towards her and expressed wanting to pay a hitman to take her out, as it was cheaper than getting a divorce. Then, on Valentine's Day in 1993, China vanished, and no one has seen her since. However, not only did China go missing, but so did David. David was last seen sometime in April of 1993 at the couple's home. Then he was never heard from again. David even had 2 daughters from a previous marriage who claimed to have never spoken with their father after this day. According to police, a few years later, David's friend Jeffrey Paston, who David co-owned the home with, placed David's home up for sale. Police were tipped off about this and took him in for questioning. It was there that Jeffrey informed them that David had asked for the house to be placed up for sale and requested that any proceeds be placed into an account under the name Anthony Lewis. After this, about $40,000 of the account was taken by an unknown man who claimed to have been affiliated with David, though the other $10,000 has never been touched. Many believe that David likely took China's life, then fled to avoid police intervention, though this is just a theory. Some others believe that David may have followed through with the idea of hiring a hitman, though he had a disagreement with the hitman and had to flee to avoid being taken out himself. Though, again, this is just a theory. To this day, no one has ever seen or heard from David since the 90s, and no one has seen China since the night of her disappearance. Both cases remain unsolved. Number 4. In 2006, a 41-year-old woman by the name of Maureen Fields showed up to work on Valentine's Day in quite an awful mood. Her coworkers soon found out that Maureen's marriage had been on shaky ground for quite some time, and when she informed them of this, she told them that something was going to happen. The very next day, she went missing. However, according to Maureen's husband, she left their home that morning, yet never showed up for work. A search was then conducted, and Maureen's car was found to have been stuck in the sand of the Mojave Desert, just a short distance away from Death Valley. Her purse, as well as her other personal effects, were found to have been still inside the car, though there were also signs of vomit and blood. Additionally, police found an empty Xanax bottle in the car. This led to speculation that Maureen may have wandered into the desert and taken her own life, and the Xanax bottle had been wiped free of fingerprints, meaning that the entire scene could have easily been staged. DNA was also found on a pair of pantyhose found at the scene, though the DNA didn't match her husband, who'd been the prime suspect up until this point. The case then ran cold for a number of years up until 2012, when police were able to identify the unknown DNA as a man named Keith Holmes, who was a known sex offender in the area. Holmes then claimed to have had a consensual relationship with Maureen on the night of her disappearance, but couldn't provide any other information as he had dementia and couldn't recall anything further. Holmes eventually passed away in 2014, and police still believe that Maureen's husband was likely involved. One theory is that the husband may have found out about Maureen's relationship with Holmes, as Holmes claimed to have known her husband personally, though there's very little evidence of this, and Maureen's case remains unsolved. Number 3. In 1984, a woman by the name of Marcy Jo Andrews spent her Valentine's evening at a party in the Chicago area, along with a couple of her friends. The party was set up by a man named Casey Nowicki, who was driving the 2 women home later that night when he crashed, injuring Marcy Jo's ankle. Casey then gave his car keys to Marcy's friends and asked them to call a tow truck while he took Marcy to the hospital in a taxi. However, Marcy's friends then spoke with her again later that evening, to which Marcy informed them that Casey never took her to the hospital, and instead brought her back to his apartment. Throughout their call, Marcy sounded noticeably distressed, so the friends headed back to the apartment to check things out. When they arrived, Casey informed them that Marcy had already left and that he hadn't seen her in a few hours. They then asked to take a look around his apartment, but he declined to allow them to do so. After this, Marcy was never seen again. It wasn't until 16 years later that police found enough evidence against Casey to properly convict him. Their theory was that he had taken Marcy back to his apartment, drugged her, then sexually assaulted her multiple times. A male witness was then found who allegedly saw Marcy handcuffed to a radiator in Casey's apartment, lying on the ground unconscious. A judge then ruled in Marcy's favor and found Casey guilty, sentencing him to life in prison. Number 2. On Valentine's Day of 1997, a man by the name of Donald Billings was involved in a car crash near Marion, Virginia at around 5 p.m. It was reported that he'd been driving his sister's car and that he didn't appear to have been injured when he exited the vehicle. He then told another driver who witnessed the crash that he was alright. Billings then walked away from the scene of the crash and simply kept walking. He continued on, headed in the direction of Mitchell Valley, though he was never seen or heard from again. Some have theorized that he may have hitched a ride with a truck driver and skipped town, though this hasn't been confirmed, nor does it answer why he would have done this. In fact, on the day of his disappearance, Donald's sister said that he'd been acting extremely out of character. He, seemingly out of nowhere, stated that he would never do anything to harm their mother, adding that they were very close. His sister says that statements like this led her to believe that Donald knew something was going to happen, but he was unable to stop it. In the years since his disappearance, rumors have circulated that Don may have been involved in a drug cartel, and also that he may have tipped off local police about a group of men who were involved in cooking drugs in the area. Some believe that because of this, he's now in witness protection, though others believe that these stories are a bit far-fetched, claiming that Donald likely wandered off into the woods and passed away after prolonged exposure to the relentless winter wind. Either way, Donald has never been seen again, and police have widely assumed that he's passed away. Number 1. Sable Pickett was a young woman who was last seen near Anaheim, California on Valentine's Day in 2014. At the time of her disappearance, she was known to have been living with numerous family members, hopping between homes due to the fact that she was homeless and legally unemployed. Throughout this time, she was never really close with anyone, aside from her mother. That's why when Sable stopped calling her mother regularly, she knew something must have been wrong. Pickett was known to have been working as a prostitute at the time of her disappearance, and because of this, police believe it's likely that she lost her life to one of two men, named Stephen Gordon and Frank Cano, who were known to have taken the lives of at least 4 other prostitutes around the same time frame in the same area. The 2 men were sent to trial, during which time they revealed to police that only 4 of 5 bodies they were responsible for had been found. Again, another huge reason why police believed that Pickett was involved with these men. In fact, when these men described their unidentified victim, they described Pickett's disappearance almost identically. But the sad thing is, we'll likely never know for certain whether or not Pickett was involved with these men, or if she's still alive out there somewhere. Stephen Gordon was sentenced to lethal injection last year, and Frank is refusing to cooperate with officers. To this day, Sable Pickett's disappearance remains unsolved. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos. Also, let us know in the comments what's one of the strangest things that's ever happened to you on Valentine's Day. We'll see you guys tomorrow.